Last time
Yes, yes.
we basically learned little bit about the mass spectrometry, and we learned about some of the basic aspects of mass spectrometry. First of all, the history of mass spectrometry. Then why mass spectrometry? Then what is that mass spectrometry needs as a basic feature in order to do any measurement? What are the advantages of mass spectrometry? That is what we learned last time. Shall we just revise? Can anybody tell me that first of all, why mass spectrometry? Anybody? Anybody can say anything about why mass spectrometry we are learning? Can you hear what I am saying or no?
So because it is a versatile tool in the pharmaceutical industry.
It's a versatile tool and it is an essential part of a research in any bioanalytical, pharmaceutical research, pesticide research. It's a basic tool today. Why it is basic tool? Because it can measure the mass very accurately as compared to many other techniques, and it can do the prediction of the, or basically the interpretation of the mass spectrum is easily possible. So you can do structural elucidation of a substance which is an unknown. So that is one. Secondly, it has got a tremendous sensitivity. So it can measure to the level of 10 to the power minus 15, that is femtograms. So you can easily use mass spectrometry as a very sensitive tool for the substance of abuse, forensic, doping, so many places. Everywhere you can use the mass spectrometry. And then the metabolism studies, the drugs of new type of drugs, everywhere you will find mass spectrometry as a very essential tool. Today you will not find any bioanalytical lab or any other, I will say, a good research institution where they don't have mass spectrometer. Everybody has to have mass spectrometer. So now with this, we learned a basic block diagram of a mass spectrometer. Okay, we first learned about the history. There were so many scientists who got the Nobel Prize in mass spectrometry, and we saw this is a block diagram which I am showing. So it's basically inlet, ion source, mass analyzer, detector, data system. Now today we are going to focus on ion source. Last time we discussed about high vacuum system. Why high vacuum system? Because we know without vacuum you will not have the fragments, that is the ions which are formed in the same form. Otherwise what will happen? They will collide with each other and they will get lost. So you will not get a reproducible mass spectrum. So that is why you will have the high vacuum is an essential part. And in the high vacuum you will have the pump system, which is basically dual type of pump system. So you have got a primary pump and you have got a secondary pump. So we saw there was a rotary pump and it is connected with the oil diffusion pump or with a turbomolecular pump, TMP. Now why ion source? Because the mass spectrometry, the fundamental principle is that you need to convert the material or whatever the substance which is unknown into its ions, positive or negative. Mass spectrometry cannot measure neutrals directly. It can only measure either positive ions or it can measure negative ions. Neutrals you have to conclude from see, after seeing the positive, that what is that neutral which might have got lost or which might have got fragmented. So that is again, it's like a corollary. So or it's a indirect prediction. So what you can do always is the only measurement of a positive or negative ion. Naturally, ion source. Now, as I said, why ionization? Because that is the essential feature of a mass spectrometer. Okay, without that, you cannot do the mass spectrometry. So the ionization is the basic required first. I will the first block of a mass spectrometer. Now, which ion source? Again, depends upon the molecules. If you have got a molecule which is a simple molecule like benzene, toluene, xylenes, these are very simple. You will have some different kinds of ion source, and you will have, let us suppose you have got a proteins and peptides. Then you may have different kind of ion source. Because last time I have given example. For example, if I have got a chalk and I bombard it with something with a force, the chalk will become absolutely powder. Whereas if I got a duster, which is a very stubborn material, I will say very tough material, you will need a good force. So depending upon the strongness of the molecule, whether it can undergo the ionization faster, easily, or very in a, I will say less ionization. You have got various kinds of sources. So that is how it is. So for generally for the small molecules, very small molecules, you will always use a very hard ionization technique. Last time we saw mass spectrum of a compound called decane, which is cetane. Everybody remember this decane? Yes or no? No response at all. Decane, you remember or no? You cannot hear or what I am saying? I don't know really. Madam, can you hear?
Yes, sir.
Decane, you know, remember or no? Last time we discussed. Anybody remember decane or no? It is a cetane molecule. Decane is cetane. We saw the mass spectrum for
Yes, sir.
decane.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is the? I don't
Yes,
know
sir.
why you are so blank. Am I not
Hello,
audible?
sir. We can do.
Am I audible or not?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. So there is no disturbance or anything, na?
I have
Clear?
some
No,
network
no,
issue
sir. There is no
There is a
problem.
disturbance,
no,
or
sir. No,
it's a
sir.
clear sound?
And we have
Yes, sir.
seen some
Yes, sir. You are
network
audible.
issues. Like by my side, the problem.
So somebody was telling about decane. Can you just continue?
No, sir.
Somebody was telling na about decane. Decane is a cetane molecule, and we saw electron ionization mass spectrum of decane, whereby we saw in the mass spectrum on the y-axis. This is the mass spectrum. I will show you again. On the y-axis, what you saw, that is relative intensity, or basically the intensity which is with reference to the major peak. So we saw the biggest peak. What it is called? The biggest peak?
Sir, now your
Base
voice is
peak.
cracking.
What is that?
Base peak.
Base peak.
Base peak.
And then the highest molecular weight peak, what is that called? Typically, it is molecular ion peak. Okay. By and
Yes, sir.
large, the highest molecular weight compound, highest molecular weight M by Z, or the fragment will be the molecular ion peak. It may not be all the time, but most of the time. Then all other things are called fragments. So we saw this is M by Z, that is mass to charge ratio, because mass spectrometer cannot measure the molecular weight. What it can measure is mass to charge ratio. So if your mass is, say, let us suppose 142 and charge is 1, then M by Z will be 142. But for bigger molecules, whereby Z can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that, you will have, let us suppose I have got a M as 500 and Z as 5, then it becomes M by Z is 100, because 500 divided by 5 becomes 100. So mass spectrometer does measurement no doubt accurately, but it only measures mass to charge ratio, M by Z. It doesn't know the molecular weight as such. The molecular weight interpretation is your job. That is your skills of interpretation, from which you can make out that is this, what is the molecular weight of this compound. So we saw this typically is called as a mass spectrum. Then afterwards we saw there is a least you get. What is that called? Mass least, whereby I got M by Z in one column and a relative abundance on the other column respective to that. So the highest molecular weight, highest intensity peak is the base peak, is normalized to 100, and with reference to that all other peaks are calculated. So these intensities are always relative intensity with reference to the base peak. So base peak is considered as 100 and other things as a percentage of that. So here in this case, this may be something like 85, something may be 30, like that it is there. So you can see in the mass list, So in this is another spectrum. This is not a spectrum for decane. This is another. So here 69 is the base peak, and on are with reference to this. So 100 something is 47. That means 69 if it is showing 100, that is the base peak. And when I say 137, 131 is 47.9. So this is almost half of this. Okay. So then from this percentage abundance of the M by typical M by Z, I will be able to do the interpretation. For a specific molecule, when I do the fragmentation of that and obtain the mass spectrum, this mass list is highly reproducible. So as I said last time also, whether the measurement is done in here in Birla College or measurement is done anywhere else, it will be the same. It cannot be different. So that is why from the mass spectrum and a mass list, I can do the interpretation of a mass spectrum so as to identify the unknown. So we will be able to know that what is this made up of. So here I have written decane, that is why you know. Otherwise, if I don't know this, from the spectrum itself, I will be able to determine, yes, this is the spectrum for decane. So it is basically elucidation of a structure of an unknown. So that is why, see, as I said, it has got tremendous potential, and what it measures is M by Z. Now, as I said, ionization is the basic aspect, or I will say major one block of the mass spectrometer. So now, depending upon the type of molecule, I am going to have various ion sources. So the list of typical ion sources which we are going to study is, we will be studying mainly, we will be studying electron impact, we will study the fast atom bombardment, we will study electrospray ionization, we will study chemical ionization also, we will study matrix assisted laser desorption also. Various sources are there, or various ionization methods are there. Why various? Depending upon the variety of molecules. Something I will be able to study using electron impact, but not using the fast atom bombardment. Something which I can study by electrospray, I may not be able to study by electron impact mode. Like that it is there. So depending upon the type of molecule, I will be choosing the ionization technique. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes or no? Okay.
Yes.
Now let us study this. So electron ionization, you can see the name itself. So that means the ionization using the electrons. Okay. So this is a very widely used technique in the mass spectrometry for a very relatively volatile samples, whereby I can do the GC. So as I said last time, the inlet systems, variety of inlet systems are there. Either you can have GC as an inlet system, you can have HPLC as an inlet system, you can have direct probe also as an inlet system. So the mass spectrometer is common. What it is going to change is the inlet system will change. But where I can do the volatile samples, I can do the GC. Where those samples which are not volatile, I may do LC. But I will need something feature. Last time I told you one term. Where I can do GC, I need to do volatile samples. If it is there, I can do GC. So there is a term I say, if I can evaporate, I can separate on GC. And in case of LC, I need to dissolve the sample in a solvent. So if I can dissolve, I can resolve in LC. So depending upon the type of the material, I will be using the inlet system, that is the GCMS or LCMS. So now electron ionization is a very typically widely used source for GCMS, because the compounds which are volatile in nature, I will be doing the electron ionization. The spectra usually contains many fragment ions, lot of fragment ions. It's a very characteristic spectrum, and I will be able to identify the compound of interest. I will be from the electron ionization mass spectrum, I will be able to do the interpretation. If you see there are libraries. See, like you have got infrared spectrum, you have studied in your last year. Infrared spectrum is a typical, it's a very typical spectrum for each individual compound. By seeing the infrared spectrum, you will be able to interpret the molecule, you will be able to identify the molecule. Similarly, here also, by seeing the electron ionization mass spectrum, I'll be able to interpret the molecule and interpret the compound that is unknown. So now, since there is a lot of, I will say, reproducibility of the mass spectrum, for a typical kind of compound, which I showed you last time, decane, it will show me the mass spectrum, the same mass spectrum, anywhere. If I do here or any other place, it will be the same mass spectrum if I am keeping my source same. If my source differs, that is electron ionization mass spectrum with the ion source. If I change the source, the mass spectrum is going to differ. Why it is going to differ? Because the impact or the force I am going to use for, I gave you last time example of paperweight. So if I am using high, there will be complete fragmentation or maybe powdering of that paperweight. But if I use small force, then there will be few pieces which I may be able to do interpretation. So electron ionization mass spectrum is a highly reproducible mass spectrum and uses a high energy electrons. So these electron ionization mass spectrum, you can, since it is reproducible, you will have fingerprint of this. Each and every molecule will show a typical electron ionization mass spectrum, and I can make a library. I can easily make a library of the spectrum, so that like toluene, when it is you do the mass spectrum, you get this particular mass spectrum. When it is EI mode, when you have got xylene, you get this, like that. Like that, you can have a library of compounds. There are libraries available. Now next year, when your this thing starts, the pandemic gets over or little reduces, when you go for the your practicals, at that time you can see the libraries. When you see the actual GCMS, you can see the libraries also there. So libraries are there available. So library means they are software based libraries. You will have 5 lakh compounds, 10 lakh compounds, and their mass spectrums recorded. There are typically two libraries which are very famous. One is NIST library and one is Wiley library, WILEY. These are the libraries. These are all not free available. They are on paid basis. So they are licensed libraries. So they are, if you have got a library and you generate a mass spectrum, you can always compare the library spectrum with your mass spectrum, and the library will tell you that yes, this your compound may be belonging to this particular category or it matches with this particular compound. So you will be able to do identification. But for compounds which are completely unknown, the library spectrums may not be available, and so it is then interpretation skills of mass spectrometer specialist that comes into picture. So the spectra usually contains fragment ions for ionization. So what is the typical phenomenon? Like here, volatile substances are ionized by electron impact ionization, by interaction of gaseous molecules with an electron beam. So what it indicates? You have got an electron beam, which is a high energy electron beam, and it bombards on your molecule of interest. The molecule gets fragmented and it forms the ions. So these are the positive ions, and then there is a dislodging of the electron. EI is typically done at 70 electron volts. It causes excessive fragmentation as enough energy is transferred to most of the molecules. As written in this slide, the energy of the electrons in this case is 1600 kilocalories, which is a very, very high energy. Typically, it takes only 100 kilocalories to cleave a typical sigma bond. Sigma bond is the weakest bond or strongest bond? How many types of bonds are there typically in organic chemistry? Sigma bond and pi bond. These are the typical. Okay, I am talking about organic chemists, organic materials. So, out of which is the weakest bond? Sigma or pi? Can anybody say?
Sigma.
Sigma is the strongest bond. Okay. So sigma bond also, although it is the strongest bond, it takes only 100 kilocalories to cleave the sigma bond. So if I supply 1600 kilocalories, what will happen to the sigma bond? It will 100% break. Right? All this, so maybe I may have benzene molecule, toluene molecule, so stable molecules, nothing happens to these molecules. If I store them at room temperature for maybe 20 years, nothing will happen to these molecules. They are so stable. Stable means what it indicates? the bonds are highly stable. They do not cleave as such. They do not undergo degradation. Whereas many of the pharma compounds or even agrochemicals, you will find they will undergo degradation because the molecules tend to do many reactions. Whereas there are many other molecules, organic molecules, which are highly stable. Those molecules also, if they undergo the electron impact ionization, majority of the bonds they break, and once they break the bond, you will get the ions. That is M plus ion I am getting, because here M is my molecule of interest, E is my electron which I am bombarding on it, which has got energy of 70 electron volts. Because of this E which is bombarding on M, there is a dislodging of one electron from this. So M, which has got electrons which are all basically the paired electrons, out of which one electron is dislodged. So here I get 2E minus, one which is already there E, and then one electron is dislodged, which I get 2E minus. But this 2E minus, since already the electron is already bombarded here, the energy of this electron will be lost. No, it will not be high energy electron. So both these electrons will be low energy electrons. Okay. Whereas M plus, which is one electron is dislodged from here, so there is a +1 charge, because molecule as a whole is a neutral in nature. Okay. Out of which if I remove one electron, naturally there will be +1 charge will be there. So there is a M plus. So this M plus will be basically the ion which is formed, and it can further undergo the degradation also, which will come to that in the later stage. So I go on getting the fragments of this, maybe first M plus form, then some other things, we'll see that. So molecules will be definitely, they will get ionized. So there is no doubt, because 1600 kilocalories is too high energy as compared to the requirement of 100 kilocalories. So how does it look like? See the picture. This is the typical electron impact mode. I have got a filament here. Okay. Can everybody see the filament?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So this is the filament which is typically made up of rhenium. Rhenium is a material from which this filament is made up of. Okay. So this rhenium filament, it has been given a very high energy. So because of the high energy, it generates electrons, and these electrons are 70 electron volts electron. So these electrons, here there is a repeller. Okay. Then there is a ions which are molecules which are coming from my GC part. So these GC part molecules are coming here. So now you can imagine this in a three-dimensional mode. In the one dimension, you have got a filament. Here there is a magnet. You can say the perpendicular to this, there is a capillary of the GC coming, which is entering into the this particular ionization source. This M, which are the molecules which are coming here, they are undergoing this E minus. You can see these are the electrons which are coming from this rhenium filament. This M, as I said, this is, you can visualize this in a perpendicular, where the molecules are coming from the GC, my capillary column. So these M are going to interact with E. Then there is the M plus is getting formed. The electrons, there will be electrons formation which will be low energy electrons. They will be removed also. So these all electrons which are coming out from this rhenium filament, they are accelerated using this another opposite pole. So they are getting attracted. While getting attracted, they will be coming across with them, which is the molecule of my interest, and that is how they will be colliding with my M, and the M plus will be formed. Once the M plus is formed, now M plus is shown, is typically molecular ion, it is shown by M plus. F is a fragment, so that is, it is shown by F plus. So these all ions which are formed are going to the mass spectrometer portion, which needs to analyze. So there will be lenses which are electrostatic lenses. So there will be initially, when it is M plus, there will be first lens is going to be negative, so that is all these M plus are getting attracted. Subsequently there will be positive, so that there is a collimation of a beam of the ions which are formed, and subsequently they will go into the mass spectrometer. So there is a voltages which will be applied. There is accelerating voltage will be there here. So because of the accelerating voltage, which is VAC here, this all will be accelerated here and go to here, and in their path they will find there is M and there is an interaction followed by the fragmentation of the ions. So this is how the electron impact mode looks like. It's a highly stable and I will say highly reproducible mass spectrum it produces. So if I just now want to write down the reactions of a whereby AB is my molecule of interest. I have just shown the analytic species by AB. So molecule of interest, which is coming from my GC part or which is coming from my HPLC part, inlet system. E minus is my electron, which is high energy electron. Because of the bombardment, I get A plus and B minus. These are the two fragments I got. A plus is a plus 1 charge, B minus is a minus charge, and then there is another E minus getting formed. Now there are a variety of reactions, all these are happening simultaneously. I am not saying this happening, then this, like that, like no, nothing like this. These are all getting formed simultaneously. So that is AB giving me like this, AB plus E minus giving me rise to A plus B0 plus 2E minus, that means this is a neutral molecule which is formed. A plus is the charge which is a positive ion which is formed. AB plus E minus, it is basically absorbed here. AB plus I am getting, so there is no fragmentation happening here. AB plus which is getting formed with 2E minus, then subsequently again AB plus like this. So this is a transient species, so AB plus I get, then AB plus E minus, it is absorbed here, plus 2 plus I am getting charge, and 2 more electrons, that is 3 electrons are coming out. E plus, which is E minus, that is original, and 2 electrons from this are getting lost, that is why there is a 2 plus charge here, and 3 electrons are getting lost, which again can turn to the A plus and B minus. Variety of reactions are happening at a time. Or there may be another reaction which is AH, which is basically a proton, and proton means hydrogen ion. So it is AH plus E minus. So this is another which can form. So you can see in this case AB, we saw when there is an electron ionization mass spectrum, you will have either the molecular ion formation will be there. The molecular ion means the positive ion which is having plus 1 charge, but there is no fragmentation. So original molecular weight is maintained. So now in this 4 reactions, can anybody tell me where is the molecular ion formation? Everybody will agree with me that AB plus E minus giving rise to me A plus. Now AB is the original molecule which is forming A plus B minus. So is there molecular ion maintained here? No, because A plus is the fragment form, B minus is another fragment form. AB plus E minus again giving rise to A plus B0. Again the molecular ion is not maintained here, there are 2 fragments formed. Now AB plus E minus giving rise me to this AB plus here. This is the reaction which will give me the molecular ion. Because you can imagine AB is the original molecule maintained. Only what it has assumed is a plus 1 charge assumed. So reaction number 3 is the reaction which will give me the molecular ion. Or whereas reaction 1 and reaction 2 will give me the fragments. All these 3 things are essential in my mass spectrum, because only AB knowing that is the molecular weight of the compound, can I know the structure of the compound? If I just tell you 120 is the molecular weight of the molecular ion is there, can you from 120 you can make out what is the structure of the compound? No, because 120 molecular weight compounds, you can have hundreds and thousands of molecules which will have 120 molecular weight. But with the 120 molecular weight and with A plus and B minus, this kind of fragments, there will be only one type of molecule. So that is why you will always need, for interpretation point of view, you will always need a molecular ion as well as you will need the fragments. Now, when the mass spectrometer measures the ions, it can be either tuned in a positive mode or it can be tuned in the negative mode. So you can either measure positive ions or you can measure the negative ions. You cannot measure both the ions simultaneously. So if I say positive ion mass spectrometry if I am doing, I can see in this first reaction, I can see only A plus. Okay. In this second reaction, again I can see only A plus. Here in the third reaction, I can see AB plus. In fourth reaction, I can see A plus. Here I can see H plus. All these things I can see here. Sorry, H plus H. This I can see. So I cannot see in the first reaction B minus because the B minus will be removed by my lenses. Because as I said, this is a limitation of a mass spectrometry that I can see either positive or negative. If I decide to tune the mass spectrometer in the negative mode, then I can see in the first reaction B minus, A plus I cannot see. In the second reaction I cannot see anything. Third reaction I cannot see anything. Only the B minus can be seen. So generally, the most common I will be getting fragments are only going to be the positive ions. So that is why when we see mass spectrometry, we generally talk about positive ion mass spectrometry. Negative ion also we see only once in a while cases, which we have got a separate subject on that. That is negative ion chemical analysis mass spectrometry. That will be studied afterwards. But so currently, as I am discussing, when I say mass spectrometry, it is always positive ion mass spectrometry. So now if I see A plus here and AB also I know, the molecular ion I know A plus also what is formed, I will be able to make out that it might have lost if AB is a molecular I know, and if I see A plus also mass fragment I can see, I will be able to deduce that yes, B minus might have got lost. So that is an indirect, I will be able to do the calculation. So from this, I will be able to see the fragments, I will be able to see the molecular ions. And if I see the both molecular ions and fragments, I will be able to do the interpretation of a mass spectrum. Anything, any doubt in this? Any doubt in this about electron impact?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So what we'll do now, we'll take a 5 minutes break, okay, and then we'll continue at right now I think it is 10:35. We'll continue at 10:40, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let us continue.
Yes, sir.
So now I told you that basically the 70 electron volts is the energy which is required for electron impact ionization. The energy of electron is 70 electron volts. Now why 70 electron volts? Because scientists have studied a lot on this, how much energy and whether if you keep the high energy or low energy. So this is typically scientists studied. You can see on the x-axis there is the energy of the electrons. You can see from the lowest portion to the highest portion. So more than 70 also people have tried, and you can see information obtained. Because as the energy of the electrons is more or less, you will have fragmentation more or less. Because energy of the electrons is like a force. So if I got a very low energy, if I say let us suppose 10 electron volts, you can see the fragmentation is very less. So in terms of information obtained, if I plot on y-axis, the information obtained is very less if my energy of the electron is very less. As my energy increases more and more, my fragmentation increases and it reaches the optimum. Okay, so because what I need in the mass spectrum is I need molecular ion also as well as I need fragments also. So if I say information obtained, which is basically a total of both, that is molecular ion availability as well as the fragment availability. So then if I plot, it was found that at 70 electron volts you get the maximum information. As I increase the energy more and more, if I go to 80, 90, 100, 120, then my fragmentation is too high. And then I will not be able to see the molecular ions also. If my fragments are too high, then interpretation is very difficult. We will not be able to interpret. As I told you last time, for example, if I got a paperweight and if I crush that paperweight completely into the powder and that powder is shown to me, I will not be able to make out anything. But if the paperweight is fragmented into say 3-4 pieces and they are shown to me, I will be able to make out, yes, it might have come from the paperweight. So that is how you need to have fragments definitely, you need to have molecular ion preferably, and but if there is no fragments also, then also it is difficult, you will not be able to make out, because only knowing the molecular ion or the molecular weight will not give me the sufficient information, because one particular molecular weight I consider, as I said example 120, you will have hundreds of molecules which will have the 120 as a molecular weight. So that is why we will need fragments also as well as the molecular ion also. So this, from this plot it was clear to the scientists that one must choose 70 electron volts as the energy for electron impact ionization or electron ionization. So worldwide this has been chosen as standard. So any machine you take, whether it is a Perkin-Elmer or it is a Shimadzu or it is a Agilent, these are all typical big companies who make the mass spectrometers. So everywhere you will find the electron impact ionization or electron ionization energy is always 70 electron volts. So this is the standard. And so libraries also which are generated in the world, which I told you just now, NIST and Wiley, they are also based on 70 electron volts electron ionization mode and with a quadrupole as a mass analyzer. So this is how the libraries are generated. So is this clear? Why 70 electron volts?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So now, if I told you that EI is a very popular for small molecules, but what about big molecules? If I got proteins or peptides or polymers, if I say they are all big molecules, and if they are big molecules, they will if I do expose them to the EI, they will generate hundreds and thousands of really the fragments, and it will be too complex to analyze. So doing a protein or peptides by EI is not possible. So generally EI is not used above 1000 molecular weight. If it is more than 1000 molecular weight, generally the volatility also reduces, because as the molecular weight increases, the material's boiling point also increases. This is a fundamental principle, or I say it's a thumb rule. So if my molecular weights are very, very low, then I will generally have the molecule which is volatile in nature, and it will be stable also. So if I say normal compound like benzene, toluene, xylene, these are all molecules which are low molecular weight, and they will be volatile in nature also. So whereas very, very high molecular weight compounds, all polymers, proteins, peptides, plastics, all polymers you see, they are so high molecular weight, their molecular weight changes from millions, generally 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. So they are absolutely non-volatile. And if we allow them to have the EI spectrum, then it will be highly complicated. And if it is, first of all, you will not be able to do GC of them. You will have to do only direct probe method. But if I do direct probe method, the fragments will be too many and will not be able to interpret. So that is why proteins, peptides, or very, very high molecular weight compounds, you will not be able to do the EI. Now, if some materials, if I am not able to do the EI, or if I do EI also, like we saw decane. Decane is a typical long chain aliphatics. See, most of the long chain aliphatic, more than decane, or if let us suppose I got C18 compound, which is octadecyl. So if I say C18 is there, then this is the C18 which will be really the very, very long chain. As the materials are aliphatic, long chain aliphatics, they will be highly unstable in the sense if undergo EI. They will not form any molecular ion, or molecular ion, whatever is formed, will be very, very small in nature. The intensity will be very small. So very difficult. Now for successful mass spectrum, I need both. Either first of all I need fragments, and I also need molecular ion. Now if I have come across with a molecule which shows me only fragments, but it is not showing me molecular ion, then what to do? So there is a alternate to that, which is typically chemical ionization. Now chemical ionization is not a standalone. It is not done separately. It is always done in association with EI. First of all, you have to do EI. In EI, if you find that you are not so sure about the molecular weight of the compound, then you will do the CI. That is, molecular ion is not seen, then you will do CI. If the molecular ion is seen properly and you are already confirmed that this particular mass spectrum belongs to this particular unknown, which is you can interpret easily, no CI is required. CI is required only when you are not able to see the molecular ion. So it will be typically applicable for aliphatics, because aliphatics you will generally not have the molecular ion, or basically the bigger compounds, but again which are little less than 1000, because if it is not less than 1000, it is more than 1000, you will not be able to do EI itself, because the material may not be volatile. That is the first thing. Secondly, if it generates fragments, there will be too many fragments, and then the mass spectrum becomes too complicated. So here the chemical ionization mode, I am using a particular gas here as a chemical ionization agent here. So what I am doing is that I am taking a material which is typically, I am saying, the methane or ethane or ethylene, or I can use ammonia. These are the typically I am using for the, I will just show you. So if I got material and if I introduce methane, let us take now these are all basically reagent gases. That is the terminology which is used. Now the reagent gas, if I am using methane and I introduce in the mass spectrometer. Now the mass spectrometer, if I introduce methane, the vacuum will drop. That is the first thing. Now in this case, I basically want the mass analyzer portion, the vacuum is not dropping. The mass analyzer portion, the vacuum will be same maintained. Only the ionization chamber, the vacuum is dropping because of my introduction of a reagent gas. So this methane which I am using as a reagent gas, it will basically undergo the interaction with my high energy electrons. So EI is already there, and these electrons, they will, now I will show you this thing. For example, here reagent gases, that is methane, it undergoes the interaction with my electrons to form the another ion. Then there will be 2E minus, So there will be another. So like that, there is a CH5 plus, which is a ion of interest for me. Now this I have introduced in ionization chamber, which is earlier it is only EI is there, the electrons are there, my compound is there, but compound is forming too many fragments, no molecular ion. That is why I have introduced now the chemical ionization. The chemical ionization means I need to have the reagent gas. I have introduced a reagent gas, which is methane in this case. Now this methane has undergone the electrons which are there because of the EI source, which forms CH5 plus. Now this CH5 plus in turn interacts with my compound of interest M to form M plus 1. So it is like an indirect ionization of my compound of interest, because the concentration of reagent gas is too high. In this case, inside the ionization chamber, my compound of interest, the concentration is small. So that is why the first what it forms is my reagent gas interacts with my E minus, that is electrons, to form CH5 plus. Now once CH5 plus forms, then it is interacting with my compound of interest, which is M, to form M plus 1. So now when I am going to do CI, only when I am not able to see the molecular ion peak. So first I have to generate the EI spectrum, which shows me the fragments. Subsequent to that, since I am not able to see the molecular ion, I have introduced my reagent gas. So the EI-CI is always a combined assembly. You can either do EI or you can do CI. In CI, EI is always there. CI is not standalone anytime, because the electron source is always required. Because you can see here also E minus is there. So there is a EI and CI both, or EI alone. You cannot have CI separately. In a sense, without electrons, you cannot do chemical ionization. So electrons are there. So now here CH5 plus M, which has formed M plus 1. So now if I have generated my mass spectrum, you can see here I have got EI and CI both. Now here there is a mass spectrum which is of a decanol. Now the chemical ionization with isobutane as a reagent gas. So this is the first spectrum, which is the chemical ionization mode. Okay. So this is the chemical ionization and this is the original EI. Now if I got, you can see here original EI, that is bottom spectrum, you cannot see the molecular ion at all, which is absolutely nothing is there, the intensity is not there. I am able to pinpoint something because I have seen something here. That is how it is. So I am not able to see anything here. So only what I am seeing the fragments. Only from the fragments I will not be able to see anything. Since I am not able to see the molecular ion, I have gone to the CI mode. And once I have gone to CI mode, I have generated it in mass spectrum. So this and this I have combined since simultaneously I look into, and then I will be able to do some interpretation. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I do CI independently without EI?
No.
No.
Why?
No, sir.
Why I can't do?
Electron source is required.
Electron source is required. And for CI independently, if let us suppose I see another feature of CI is that CI, it will not show me the because it becomes a software ionization. See, like I gave you an example. Like I have got a hammer and I am bombarding on a chalk. Okay. Bombard a chalk, the chalk is going to become powder completely. That is the condition. But if I have got some intermediate material, that hammer is bombarding on intermediate material, and that intermediate material, let us suppose some other piece, and then it is bombarding to chalk, then chalk will get fragmented into lesser pieces, right? Because the energy transfer is less. The first energy transfer is from the hammer to the intermediate pieces or some material, and then from that it gets transferred to the my chalk. So that is why energy transfer is very, very less. Naturally, the chalk doesn't become absolutely powder, and I will be able to see the few pieces. But since I will be able to see majority of the molecular ion or M plus 1, the fragments are going to be less because the energy is less in CI. So that is why a standalone CI will not give me any information, because it will only give information about the molecular ion. But there are no fragments. Can I just do the interpretation of mass spectrum without fragments?
No.
No,
No,
I
sir.
can't do that.
No,
Because
sir.
I will always need molecular ion also as well as the fragments also. Both the things are essential features of my mass spectrometry, right? So that is why EI and CI are both excellent techniques, and but they should be done together. Now, if let us suppose in the EI spectrum, if I am able to see the molecular ion properly, is CI required?
If you, sir, can you repeat?
If let us suppose I have got obtained the mass spectrum, I can see the fragments properly and I can see the molecular ion also very properly. Is my CI required then?
So
No.
then it is not
It
required.
is not required. CI is not required at all, because CI is required only when I am not able to see the molecular ion, right? So it is a
Yes, sir.
tool for all those small molecules which are volatile in nature and showing excellent fragments, but somehow not able to show the molecular ion because of their inherent nature of the chemical species. I said typically the most of the aromatics, they will show very strong molecular ion because they are very stable in nature, whereas most of the long chain aliphatics, they will not show me any molecular ion. So naturally, for most of the all these long chain aliphatics, I will be needing the CI along with EI. Then only the interpretation is possible. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I told you there are various reagent gases are possible. Okay. I can use the isobutylene. I can use ammonia. I can use. Now which reagent gases? Typically in industry wants to use something which is available in the pure form and it is cheaper. So the methane is the typical gas which is preferred. But let us study some of the other gases also. This we have seen already, like here, the upper spectrum is shown as the EI, the bottom spectrum is shown as CI. You can see here M+1 is seen, whereas here the fragments are seen. Now, if I see methane, isobutane and ammonia, all typical reactions which are happening. Okay, the CH4 plus E minus, CH4 plus, then showing this, then finally it is CH5 plus, which in interacts with my compound of interest, and I may get the really the proper M+1. These are all variety of reactions happening. CH4 plus may also form C2H5 plus. Then isobutane, again these are the reactions happening. Now these different materials like methane has got a typical properties, isobutane has typical properties, and ammonia has typical properties. If I see in methane, I will see the relevant observed peaks are typically M+1. I will give M plus CH5 plus also. I am against plus M plus C2H5, because you can see here I am getting CH5 plus, I am getting C2H5 plus also. Now you cannot dictate on the molecule that what is the species it should form. See, as a scientist, you will always need only M+1, that is MH plus. H means 1 plus proton, so that is MH plus, that is what we want. But M plus CH5 plus is also can association type of complex can form. You cannot restrict that. And similarly M plus C2H5 plus also can form. You cannot restrict that. But I need mainly MH plus. Isobutane mainly forms MH plus, whereas methane can form this association complex also, and ammonia can form MH plus as well as M plus NH4 plus also. So in addition to the wanted species of MH plus, you will always have higher molecular weight peaks also seen. Now it is the expertise of the analytical scientists or bioanalytical scientists to identify which is really the M+1 peak and which is the association type of complexes. This is through experience we can make out. That is, when you go on generating the CI spectrum again and again, you will know that yes, this kind of compounds, it will show always me the M+1. It may show me M plus CH5 plus also. It may show me M plus C2H5 plus also. Like that it will be there. Because you cannot dictate the terms that on the molecule that you want only M+1. It will form M+1 no doubt, but it will form other species also. And then for a layman, it will be highly confusing spectra. Possible. But for an expert, he will be able to make out, yes, this compound, this particular peaks belong to the association type of complexes and they need to be neglected, or whereas this is the species which is basically I am looking at. Now, if there are 2-3 things which are very critical in this case, now which reagent gases? We'll just keep this. There are mainly 2 factors. One is proton affinity. Which reagent gases when I say either I should use methane or I should use isobutane or I should use ammonia. Any of the reagent gases are possible. I can use. But whether I should use methane or I should use ammonia, so the first factor is the proton affinity. Now when I say M+1 peak, that means my compound of interest is accepting a proton. Is this clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
When I say M+1, that means my compound of interest is accepting a proton, right? Proton means H plus ion.
Yes.
There is no proton as such transfer. The H plus ion is always a proton, because there is no electron outside. So the H plus means a proton. So it accepts H plus ion or the proton. That means my reagent gas has to give the proton. Clear?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Because if my compound, see, there is always a donor acceptor. If something donates, then only the acceptor will accept. If donor doesn't donate, can acceptor accept?
No.
Nobody can do that. So that is why there is always a donor acceptor relationship between the reagent gas and my compound of interest. My reagent gas is a donor and my compound of interest is acceptor. So the proton affinity of a reagent gas, so that is how fast it is going to give out the proton, is going to be very crucial. If let us suppose my reagent gas doesn't give out the proton fast to my compound of interest, then whether M plus will form?
No, sir.
My reagent gas, that means उसके हाथ से छूटता नहीं है. It doesn't come out from his hand. That means he is not able to donate. If it is not able to donate, naturally my acceptor, which is my compound of interest, will not accept, because he is not getting at all. So that is why proton affinity of a reagent gas has to be as low as possible. If it is affinity means liking, if it keeps it doesn't give out, then my compound of interest will not get a proton. So that is why proton affinity is a very important aspect in the reagent gas. As the proton affinity of the reagent gas is lowest possible, then the successful M+1 will be there. If the proton affinity of the reagent gas is too high, it will hold the proton. It will not give out the proton. Naturally, my M+1 formation will not be there. Okay. Similarly, the energy transfer. When I say my electrons are having, what is the energy of the electrons which I am using? How much energy is there for the electrons?
70.
70 electron volts. It is the same because EI is there already. So 70 electron volts is the energy of my electrons. This electron is energy is coming to my reagent gas. Now my reagent gas in turn giving out some of the energy to my molecule of interest, that was the compound of interest. Now if my reagent gas completely transfers the energy to my compound of interest, then what will happen? The fragmentation will be too high, because the fragmentation will be completely dependent on how much energy it is receiving, right? If the energy it is receiving is too high, then the fragmentation will be too high. So the energy transfer, what I want is that has to be as minimum as possible. So my reagent gas, when it is exposed to the high energy electron, it should form the ions and it should in turn CH5 plus, for example in methane, it should interact with my compound of interest but transfer the lowest possible energy or the lowest amount of energy to my compound of interest. Because if it absorbs, it gives more energy, my compound of interest is going to get fragmented too much, and then it is possible again the spectrum will be very similar to the EI. So that is why energy transfer from my reagent gas to my compound of interest should be as low as possible. So proton affinity of my reagent gas should be as low as possible, and energy transfer should be as low as possible. So if my proton affinity of my reagent gas is too low, then it will give out the proton immediately, and energy transfer, it should not transfer too high energy. It should really take care of that particular energy what it is receiving from the my electrons, and transfer only a small amount of energy. Then only my molecule of interest will receive less energy, and it will give the less fragments, and M+1 formation will be there. Otherwise there will be lot of fragmentation. If it forms lot of fragments, the spectra will be very similar to the EI, then which is not of my interest. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So what I am saying is proton affinity and energy transfer. So ammonia is the most used reagent gas in CI because of the low energy transfer. So as compared to CH5 plus, but CH5 plus it will either transfer more energy. That means it will give more fragmentation. Whereas ammonia, it will form MH plus and NH4 plus also. There will be difference. So you will, although there is ammonia is a more favorable gas for as a reagent gas, there will be issues related to ammonia, which is typically one of the reasons corrosion is the issue. Then so purity also ammonia, purity again is available, good highly pure ammonia is also available, but corrosion is another major issue. So compared to that, availability of methane is a very good, it's a highly pure methane available, there is no corrosion issue also. So although there will be some issue related to the energy transfer, still most of the industries use methane as a reagent gas in their chemical analysis. Like for example, in our laboratory, we have got EI-CI, EI is a 70 electron volts, and CI is there, which is typically the methane cylinder we have, and we use methane as a reagent gas there. So methane is the most preferred reagent gas in industries. Now, just like we saw the electron ionization. Now, electron ionization is basically I am dislodging the electron from my compound of interest. Okay. So when I am dislodging, I get a positive ion, right? Now let us suppose my compound of interest, it has got a very high electron affinity. What do you mean by affinity? That means lovingness. It wants electrons more and more. So typically the compounds which are the most electron affinity compounds are halogens. Chlorine, bromine, iodine, these are all compounds which will have very high electron affinity. So it is possible that when the electrons are bombarded, instead of it forming a positive ion, it may capture the electron. It may capture the electron, and if it captures the electrons, it will form positive ion or negative ion?
Negative ions.
Negative ion. Because positive ion is formed only after the dislodging of the electron. Negative ion will be formed because it has already captured additional electron. It was already, the compound was in the neutral state. Once it has captured the electron, it will form the negative ion. So negative ion chemical ionization is typically used a lot for all the halogens, and just like I told you, positive ion chemical ionization is one aspect. Now here I call it negative ion chemical ionization because it is basically capturing the electron. So this is a typical phase. So I may use the reagent gases whereby it will emit out those things, and I will get the negative ion chemical ionization. So this is a typically used for all those materials which are having the very high electron affinity. In this case, there are many mechanisms are there. The electron capture reaction due to attainment of slow moving, low energy thermalized electrons which may be transferred more efficiently to sample molecules. Electron transfer from the ionized reagent gas, that is for example ammonia, may transfer to the electron of the having the greater affinity than ammonia, because your, as I said, reagent gas will have electron affinity. Just like I talked about proton affinity, there will be electron affinity. But if my electron affinity of my compound of interest is more, I will get the negative ion. So negative ion chemical ionization is a very similar to positive ion chemical ionization, except instead of forming the positive ion, it will form a negative ion. So now negative ion chemical ionization is typically which is used for the compounds which are electronegative in nature, that is nitrate compounds, then there will be some cyanide compound, the halogens, all those things. Like that is why many of the pesticides which are halogenated pesticides, like either chlorinated or fluorinated, brominated, you will use negative ion chemical ionization for the sensitive analysis. Now, negative ion chemical ionization is highly sensitive than positive ion chemical ionization also. Why it is so? Because of the typically the fundamental in analytical chemistry, that is signal to noise ratio. Anybody remember signal to noise ratio? In the chemistry, analytical chemistry, you learned chromatography, you learned spectroscopy. Everywhere there is something called signal to noise ratio. You remember or no?
Yes, sir.
Sensitivity of the
Yes,
any technique is dependent on the signal also as well as the noise also. If let us suppose my signal is too high and my noise also is too high, then my signal to noise ratio is going to be low. But let us suppose my signal is same but my noise is low, my S band ratio increases and naturally the sensitivity of the technique increases. Now what we'll do, it's already 11:10, so we'll again take 5 minutes break and 11:15 we'll again continue.
Yes, sir.
So we'll continue.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I was talking about signal to noise ratio. So now in this case, if you see typically the positive ion mass spectrometry or positive ion chemical ionization also, see there the possibility of see where from the noise comes. Noise always comes from the some other interferences, or maybe electronic noise will be there, or maybe some of the background materials which are there which are coming from the column. Some leaching is there from the column. All those things will be there. So all those things will be giving me the noise. And when the noise comes, my signal also is there, then my signal to noise ratio always reduces. When my sensitivity is not dependent on the signal, sensitivity is always dependent on signal to noise ratio. If my signal is excellent but noise is also very high, then my sensitivity is poor, because I will not be able to identify which is the signal and which is the noise. So I don't want to go into the details, because as you must have learned it a lot in the last year, like there are typical based on signal to noise ratio, it is called, there will be limit of detection and limit of quantization, LOD and LOQ. So in case of a negative ion chemical ionization mass spectrometry, or typically the NICI mode, which I call, if you see the compounds which can show me the negative ion chemical ionization mode or forming the negative ions, is in the background is very less. There are only very specific compounds which will show me the negative ion chemical ionization mass spectrometry, or the negative ion formation. Most of the materials will try to show me the positive ion, and when I am doing NICI or negative ion chemical ionization mode, I will be operating my mass spectrometer in negative ion mode. When I am operating in negative ion mode, then since my background is not going to have many things, because those materials which typically give me the interferences or give me the background, they do not have ability to form negative ions, because only specific compounds show me the negative ions. So in case of a negative ion chemical ion mass spectrometry, my noise is very less, although my signal may be less, but my noise is absolutely negligible. Since my noise is negligible, I will get signal to noise ratio very high. So that is why many times, as compared to the electron ionization positive ion mass spectrometry, or maybe I will say electron ionization chemical ionization mass spectrometry is positive ion, if I do negative ion chemical ionization mass spectrometry, I will get a better signal. I will get a better sensitivity, I should say. Signal may be similar or less, but my since noise is less, I will get a very high sensitivity. So NICI is a technique which is very preferred technique for those compounds which can show me the NICI. Can anybody tell me which are the compounds which will show me the negative ion chemical ionization? All compounds can show me the negative ion chemical ionization.
Sir, halogens.
Only for those compounds which are having the high electronegativity. And the typical examples are like halogens, some nitrate compounds, some nitrile CN compounds, cyanide compound, like that. Most of the halogenated compounds which are typically the pesticide, there is a halogenated pesticide, is a typical series, or chlorinated pesticide, is a series of compounds. So most of these compounds identification is very easy using negative ion chemical ionization mode, because sensitivity is very high. Like typical, if you know the old times, people used to use this BHC, benzene hexachloride, or DDT, even all those compounds. Now they are all banned. I don't know, people who from villages, they will know also. They used to spread all this white powder, that is typically DDT. So that is all chlorinated pesticides. And municipal corporations or the gram panchayats used to be so fond of these things. So they used to feel that if I don't use that, then malaria cannot be controlled, because the mosquitoes control. They used to always spread the DDT or BHC. But this has got a lot of other negative issues also, this chlorinated pesticide. That is why if you see today, chlorinated pesticide is already banned from the world and from India also. And there are many other pesticides which are typically used for the both farming as well as the domestic applications. So is this negative ion chemical ionization is clear? Is it clear, or any questions?
Yes, yes. Okay.
No other questions?
Yes, sir.
What is the question? Tell me. Tell me. You said question you have, right? You got a question? Yes or no?
Clear, sir.
Clear. Okay.
No, sir.
So what we have seen today? We have seen EI, we have seen CI, and we have seen negative ion chemical ionization mode. Now, in EI, what is the energy of the electrons?
70 electron.
Okay. What is the filament used?
Rhenium.
Rhenium filament is typically used. Yes.
Uh,
I will get highly reproducible EI. Why 70 electron volts?
more
Why
information is
70 volts?
obtained at that energy.
Why? Can you elaborate?
More energy, more information is obtained at
Yes,
that.
more information is obtained. The optimum or the highest information is obtained at 70 electron volts. Okay. At the lower in 70 electron, if lower than 70 electron volts, the information generation is less. At higher than 70 electron volts, you will have always more and more fragmentation. Again, the information obtained is again the less. So you
Hello.
don't want that. So 70 electron volts is a worldwide standard taken by everybody. So irrespective of the manufacturer, the 70 electron volts is the constant everywhere for electron ionization mode. So electron impact mode you can call electron ionization mode. There are various names. The same technique, EI, typically called as EI technique. Then in EI you generate fragments, and you generate, what else you generate?
Molecular ion.
Molecular ion you generate. From molecular ion, what you get? From molecular ion, what is that you can infer? What is the conclusion from molecular ion?
Mass to charge ratio.
Right, mass to charge ratio, but typically it will tell me what is the molecular weight of the compound of interest. Okay, the molecular ion is a representation of the molecular weight of the compound, and from the molecular weight and the fragments, I will come to know the what kind of structure this may be. So there is a possibility. Again, this is all data. Any technique will not tell me 100% that this is the molecule. It is like you have to, like there is a, elephant and blind story. Everybody was knowing.
No.
No, sir.
Everybody knows elephant and blind people. So every blind people, they are trying to assess. Elephant is what? Somebody says like a rope, somebody says something like that, somebody says like a pillar, so many things. So the spectroscopy also is like this. Spectroscopy, it doesn't tell you that it is a particular molecule. It will give you the characteristics of that, and it is the analytical chemist or the bioanalytical scientist who goes on collating all those information, and he will be able to infer that what is that molecule. So here also mass spectrometry will give me the information related to the molecular weight, or it will give information related to the mass fragments also, and from that I will be able to make out. Again, one limitation of mass spectrometry, some of the geometrical isomers you will not be able to identify. You will be getting the similar mass spectrum for these isomers also, some of the isomers. So some of the limitations are there always.
Hello, sir.
Uh,
Sir, in case of positive, we used reagent gases
no,
to
no,
form
positive,
positive ions.
no, no. If you talk about
So
only positive ion mass spectrometry, there is no reason. If you talk about positive ion chemical ionization mass
positive
spectrometry, there is
chemical,
a,
yes, in
yes,
positive chemical ionization.
yes.
And in case of negative ion, what do we do? Like, how are the negative ions formed?
Your reagent gas only.
The same
Only,
reagent gas, methane and
yes,
ammonium.
but same reagent gas I am using. Only the reagent, that is why I showed in this thing. You can see the slide is already there.
Yeah.
These mechanisms can electron capture reaction due to attainment of low energy thermalized electrons. Electron transform the ionized reagent gas may transfer an electron to a molecule having greater electron affinity. See, finally, when it is a donor and acceptor relation, who wants more? If let us suppose the acceptor doesn't want and donor is having a more affinity, then finally acceptor will say, "Ki Baba, mera hi le." You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Donor acceptor is a relative term. There is a and B. A has got a less material, B has got a more material. If it has got more material, B will try to donate. But although B has got more material, B has got more affinity. A may have less, so A will start giving to B. Reverse. Possible? Always possible. Because it is not dependent on how much. Let us suppose there are two friends and one has got 100 rupees, another got 200 rupees. So if the friends are at equal stage, 200 rupees person may say, yeah, Baba, I have got more money, I will give you some money. The other person may say. But let us suppose the 200 rupees person that he has got a more money, but he is very miser. He doesn't want to spend at all. It is quite possible that 100 rupees fellow may spend more money on this 200 fellow. So it is like he becomes donor. Right? It is like a relative term. There is nothing like a absolute affinity of anything. It is always a relative affinity. So when I say electron affinity, when I say electron negativity of a compound, if I say my ammonia, when reagent gas is used, it is not giving out the electrons. But let us suppose the electronegativity of the compound of interest is more, then it will accept the electron from my reagent gas also, because it has got a more affinity. So it is who has got more affinity. That is how it is. If I say 5 is more and 10 is 1 is less, but let us suppose the flow itself, and let us say my affinity, like I was giving case of 100 rupees and 200 rupees. Although something may be relatively more or less, but how much with the ease it will give out that. That is all it depends. So it will not give out. Like let us suppose electron capturing material or electronegative material, it has got more affinity than my reagent gas. Naturally, my reagent gas, instead of giving out a proton, it will give out the electron. Clear now?
Yes, sir. Understood.
Okay. So it is the relative affinity always. It is not absolute affinity I am talking about. It is always relative affinity. If it is relative affinity, this kind of transfer reactions are possible. Yes, any more questions on this?
No, sir.
Okay. So now we have seen today EI and CI, in which we have seen EI can be done standalone, because if the compound shows me fragments as well as the molecular ion, I am very happy that I will be able to take out that mass. The x-axis is going to be m by z ratio, y-axis is going to be my relative abundance, or I will say relative intensity. I will get a mass list, and from the mass list I will be able to make out the compound of interest. Now, but the second case we saw, where I am not able to see the molecular ion, I am generating the CI spectrum, that is chemical analysis spectrum. When I generate a CI spectrum, then I use a typical reagent gas, because of various considerations, which are typically, I told you, proton affinity and energy transfer. The most preferred gas is actually the ammonia, but because of the corrosion aspects, methane is used in industries, because ammonia will give very less energy, whereas methane will give more energy, because I want energy transfer has to be as less as possible, because I do not want the fragmentation to happen. But considering the other practical aspects, methane is used very popularly in industries. So methane, isobutane and ammonia typically reagents which are used. To see the molecular ion, I am going to generate the CI spectrum, and CI spectrum in coordination with the EI spectrum, I will be able to the interpretation. For all those molecules which are having a very strong electron affinity, I can do the negative ion chemical analysis. The typical examples like halogen based compound, typical agrochemicals are there, and there I can do the very sensitive analysis, because of the various aspects. Like one is that signal to noise ratio is one, That is, signal may be less, but noise is very, very less. And reagent gas, which is typically giving out a proton in the earlier case, gives out electron because of the relative electron affinity of the two molecules. That is, here now, if the electron affinity of the compound of interest is very, very high, it will take out the electron from the reagent gas also. That is how the negative ions are formed. So we have seen these two things today. Now this is typically EI and CI are typically used for the compounds which are volatile in nature, and naturally the most popular in this case is for GCMS. Okay. Now what about those compounds which are which cannot be analyzed by GCMS, which are typically not volatile in nature? So there are softer ionization techniques. Typically, EI is called hard ionization technique. Why hard ionization? Because it uses a very, very high energy electrons. Naturally, it's a very hard tool, like a hammer. A big hammer is there. But a big hammer, I will not be able to use for my biomolecules. If there are biomolecules which has got a very, very high molecular weight, then if I use EI, it will give out many, many peaks. So naturally, it becomes a confusing in nature, that particular mass spectrum, and so I will be using a softer techniques. Now, which are the typical softer techniques? We just go back to the list. Out of this list, the first two, the electron impact ionization, EI and CI, are typically, as I said, for GCMS, and EI is a hard technique, is a hard ionization technique. The next technique comes is a thermospray. There is atmospheric pressure chemical ionization is there. There is a fast atom bombardment is there. The electrospray ionization is there, and matrix assisted laser desorption ionization is there. There is MALDI. So the APCI, atmospheric pressure chemical ionization, the fast atom bombardment, the thermospray, electrospray, MALDI, these are all soft techniques. They are not hard techniques. They are soft techniques to be used typically for the all those molecules which are thermally labile. They can undergo degradations at higher temperatures. Naturally, I will not be able to GCMS. High molecular weight are there. So there I will be using these soft techniques. Okay. Whereas those materials which are very, very stubborn in nature or very, very stable in nature, and they are not very high molecular weight, less than 1000. A thumb rule is there. All those materials which are less than 1000, you will do easily EI. All those metals which are greater than 1000 molecular weight, you will not be able to do EI because the volatility is not much. They are not volatile in nature. Naturally, you will have to use the techniques which are typically the softer techniques, and this will be in inlet system. Now is not a GC. So if you talk about APCI, thermospray, electrospray, typically these three techniques, that is APCI, thermospray, electrospray, are used for LCMS. So whenever you do LCMS, you will either use APCI, you will either use thermospray or electrospray. We will be studying in your LCMS ionization. Now the next topic is going to be those softer techniques only. We will study the first thermospray, we will study, then we will study APCI, and then we will study electrospray. Now these are the three techniques which are typically used for all LCMS. Today, if you use thermospray, is completely an outdated technique. So what is typically used in LCMS is atmospheric pressure chemical ionization and electrospray. The fast atom bombardment and matrix assisted laser desorption ionization, or MALDI, are the desorption techniques. They are not used generally. In some cases, there is a flow through fab also. Generally, they are used as standalone techniques. They are not used with the GC, or they are not with LC also. They are standalone. So there you don't have to do any chromatography. You can directly put the compound of interest on this, and you can do the mass spectrometry. That is all possible. So what we'll do now, we will stop now because it will be halfway. If I go for the thermospray, because this is the softer technique which we will start with this. So in the next lecture, we'll first see thermospray, then we'll see APCI, and if time permits, we'll see electrospray also. So any questions on today's topics or last lecture's topics? If there are no questions, we'll stop here and we'll meet next Saturday. But you must revise what we have studied today as well as in the last lecture.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Okay? All the best. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.